Hey, folks, welcome to another Steelers Now postgame show, another losing Steelers Now postgame show. I'm Alan Saunders, live at Acrisure Stadium. Zachary Smith is sitting in traffic somewhere on his way back to Beaver County. Matt Gajtka filling in for us graciously here on the SN postgame show. The Steelers 20-17 losers to the Dallas Cowboys in a game that took forever to get started. Then the offense took forever to get going, and the entire thing took forever to get decided, with the Dallas Cowboys winning on a touchdown pass from Dak Prescott to Jalen Tolbert with 20 seconds left in the game. Man, I thought this was one the Steelers were going to find a way to win. They are generally pretty good in these, for a lack of a better word, ugly type of game. It didn't turn out that way, this one. What were you thinking at home as this thing was progressing? Did you feel like I did, that this was going to eventually turn into a Steelers victory? And then maybe we can talk about how it didn't.
Yeah, I would agree. I think ever since the Steelers offense downgraded from elite to where it is right now, which is somewhere south of mediocre, still several quarterbacks beyond the Ben Roethlisberger era, it has felt like, especially at Heinz/Acrisure, they do discover new and interesting ways to win these games. And when the fumble was forced by Landon Roberts at the goal line, I thought for sure someone in black and gold was going to fall on that. And even after that, I still thought they were going to get the stop when it came down to fourth down. But the Cowboys made that one extra play, right? And Dallas was the better team all night long. But at the same time, I was like you. I was just waiting for the final plot twist. And in the end, it did go in the favor of the visitors. So that was a strange one. Just strange being up this late watching football, 15-hour NFL day. And I guess we get a gold star for making it to the end.
Yeah, that's true. Geez, this day started with what, a 9 or a 9:30 kickoff, something like that, over in London, and now all the way till after 1 a.m. here in Pittsburgh. I think it's interesting because the game ends with a defensive touchdown. I didn't think the last two drives the defense was particularly good. They let what has not been a very good Dallas offense kind of get going. They kind of let the genie out of the bottle in a lot of ways, where this is a team that had struggled and they let them have some success. And the defense gave up a ton of yards on the whole. And so I think there's like lots of things you can point out about the defense that did not go well. But to me, like, this is not that good of a Dallas defense, missing two of its best players. And this Steelers offense looks just completely inept from almost beginning to end. They put together two drives in the second half, the last of them, kind of too late. And I don't even know where to start with breaking down how this game turns into a Steelers loss. But for me, it's got to start with the offense. This is just not enough offensive output to regularly count on winning football games.
Right. I think the timer kind of ran out on them here in terms of keeping this house of cards going and keeping the winning going over the last couple of weeks. Maybe you could put it more on the defense last week against the Colts, but this week especially, I agree, and there's a lot of places we can go. We can talk about player usage, Najee Harris on the bench a lot, George Pickens on the bench a lot tonight. We can talk about conservative play calling on some second and third and long in the first half. Like you mentioned, they got on track a bit in the second half, and full credit to them, and I love the shovel pass call, so it's not all bad for Arthur Smith and what he was dialing up there. But Justin Fields, I thought, had his worst game as a Steeler, just looked skittish, making some weird decisions all night long. Nearly got himself killed a couple of times in the pocket on some runs, and that's not all his fault, obviously. But there's plenty of nitpick there, and I'm sure we'll see some of that in the comments. I don't care how late it is. I know Steelers fans are upset about the O, and they really should be, just based upon the body of work they've seen, and it's degraded over the course of 5 games now.
I think this was the first game where the lack of talent at the wide receiver position really showed. The Cowboys have one really good corner in Trayvon Diggs. I felt like they were able to generally take George Pickens away from the Steelers, despite what his eye black coming into this game said. He was not always open. In fact, he was very rarely open in this game. And I thought the Cowboys did a really nice job of taking him away. And the rest of the Steelers playmakers couldn't really take advantage. I think Justin Fields was great in terms of getting the ball to the most open guy. Like the one where I feel like he forces it to Pickens, has Pat Freiermuth open underneath on a third down. I think he could have moved the sticks there. But, they got that long pass early to Connor Hayward wide open. The back shoulder one to Van Jefferson wide open. And those are two plays that those guys should make. even though they aren't, overwhelmingly talented, even those guys should be making those plays, and they didn't. I felt like there was connective failures there where Fields wasn't making great decisions all the time. And then when he did get the ball to somebody, they just weren't catching it. Pickens has one go through his hands on a third down early in the second half. If that drive ends in a touchdown, they probably put the game away right then and there. This running game, I thought, would finally be able to get going against this Dallas defense so beat up. You knew they were going to commit resources to taking Pickens away. Mike Tomlin used that as an excuse for why the Dallas offense was able to run the ball. He basically said, like, hey, we're double covering CeeDee Lamb. You can only do so many things with so many people. But George Pickens was taken away from the Steelers' offense, and their running game was never able to get going. I mean, Najee Harris had some yards, but very inefficiently, and there was really nothing special about the way the Steelers ran the ball against the Dallas defense. It was missing both of its top two edge rushers, and then the third edge rusher goes out in the first quarter. To me, Dan Moore and Broderick Jones should have been and Darnell Washington should have been owning the edges on those running plays. And I don't know, I did it okay, but it just never felt like there was any kind of breakthrough. I've been talking to Arthur Smith over the last couple of weeks about, like, the dam's going to break. This was the game they needed the dam to break, and it really didn't.
Yeah, when did the Steelers' rush game get any significant plays there on possession downs? They had a couple of short conversions, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. But you just look at the stat sheet on both sides, and I think the Steelers did a really nice job on CeeDee Lamb. Honestly, he made the one unbelievable toe tap catch on the sideline. He's going to make some plays, but they limited him to 5 catches, 62 yards. But Dallas had someone else step up there, and Jalen Tolbert, including the final catch. But he was pretty solid for Dak Prescott all game long. 7 catches for 87. He got 10 targets. Van Jefferson had 5 targets. I mean, Van Jefferson is one of your starting wide receivers. It's just it's not enough. I know what you're saying about NFL players should be competent enough to make these catches. And we saw Connor Hayward make a touchdown catch later in the game after his early drop. Freiermuth, yeah, it's technically a pass, but it's really an extended run play with that little shovel underneath. And like I said, that was a nifty one. But there's just not enough guys making plays. And I still think it's a bit of a mystery as to why Pickens wasn't out there a lot. He just had 7 targets tonight and just 26 total yards. Look, that's just not going to work. The total yardage, it doesn't always tell the whole story, right? I hesitate to go to it, but when you're outgained 2-1 on the night, which there goes the Gateway Clipper, which the Steelers were tonight, it's going to be difficult, even if you do get 3 turnovers and you block a field goal. There's a lot of things in there that could typically turn a game, and it still wasn't enough. So that's pretty discouraging, I would say, on the Steelers side.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, I asked him about George Pickens' usage after the game. What he said was that they were trying to play him fewer reps to get more out of him when he was playing. I don't know if I really understand that or buy that. I mean, the drop-off from George Pickens to anybody else in the game is massive. George Pickens is not out of shape. Like, there's not really any reason for him to not be playing unless he's not playing very well and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And so if the reading between the lines here is, oh, well, you're screwing up, so you must be tired, so we'll sit you down. Okay, but let's not pretend that that's what really happened, right? Because we know he's not tired. I don't know. But the only rational explanation for George Pickens playing as little as he did is that he's doing something the coaching staff is not particularly happy with.
Yeah, it's got to be something that we don't quite know about. There's some speculation, his eye black, about saying he was always fucking open. Didn't really pan out on the field. Hey, it's past 1 a.m. It's almost past 2 a.m. I can say that. YouTube especially. I'm just quoting the man. Anyway, well, I do want to get to the question because I feel like I was thinking it throughout this game. Is it finally time to let Russ cook? I feel like we're going to see him next week at Las Vegas if I had to make a guess. And I think it's time. I don't think it's just because of politically it's the right move to make now for Mike Tomlin. I think it is tactically the right move to make to see what you got. I mean, you sign this guy. We're 5 games in, and Fields has, he's been decent enough to win 3 games, right? But I just feel like it is time to make that switch. It's an easy switch you can make, and it's not like you have any long-term commitment to either one of these guys, so you're not offending anybody, or you shouldn't be at this point.
Yeah, and I think Russell Wilson, I believe, is getting closer to health. He did some team reps last week, so it kind of feels like this was about the week that he was going to try to make a real push to play. Anyway, it coincides with a bad week overall for the offense. I don't think it was necessarily all on Justin Fields, even though I think his decision making continues to be relatively poor at times. I think his stat line looks a lot better if guys just catch open passes, but yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to Russell Wilson here. I think he's been a better quarterback than what we've seen these last two games out of this offense. And so, even though they had a really nice comeback against the Colts, this starting slow thing and getting themselves into a hole thing has been sort of a from beginning to end, and it's something that's got to stop. Here's Garrett. The Steelers need to start fast, not conservative, and stop doing this east to west BS and go north south. That's the running back type that you have. That's the way you play. I don't really know that it's, all on the play calling. I think they're just not executing. I mean, they're kind of getting into some opportunities where they can make some plays. How many second and twos did they have where it just felt like it was pulling teeth to just get the two, right? Where they were second twos where every offensive coordinator dreams of, and it just felt like this game they're barely getting the first down in those scenarios. See where we can go after this.
Well, I think just to follow up on that point, the two running backs who had the most carries on either side of the ledger here tonight, Najee Harris, Rico Dowdle for Dallas, similar skill sets. I don't think Dowdle did anything extraordinary. He ran hard between the tackles for the most part, but they got him out on some pitches and some sweeps, and he did okay. I don't think it's east-west. That's the problem. That's going to be part of your running game as an NFL running back and as an offense. I think it's just on getting dominated at the point of attack. It happened way too much tonight.
Yeah. I do think it's fair to point out that, Steelers don't have Jalen Warren, don't have Cordell Patterson. They expect those guys to be a part of their running game, and they were without them here. The M-Rob, who a regular here on the channel, can't count the number of times I saw moved over the middle. Fields just didn't throw it to him. Yeah, I think the decision-making was fairly poor from Justin Fields throughout. It wasn't necessarily just like not finding open guys. It was taking some risks with the ball. Like the play where he gets the personal foul, yeah, that's like almost kind of a questionable penalty. But it was just like, how did you even get there in the first place? Like that should not be happening for that to happen. They put the ball on the ground. He made a really nice play to get the ball back after he fumbled, but put the ball on the ground. I just do not think he was particularly crisp in this one. We did talk about Mike T limiting George Pickens. We had no running back except Justin. I did think he ran hard when he ran, but even that, like so many of those, like 3rd and 1s, he'd be running the ball, and I'd think, oh, he's got this easy. There's so much space out there, and then all of a sudden he would be tackled. I don't know. It just didn't seem like things were flowing for him today.
Do some of those play fakes look weird to you, like a play fake to nobody? Is he faking a pitch on some of those little QB keepers where he tries to go around the end? I don't really understand what that's even doing except wasting time for him to try.
I think there was one where somebody turned the wrong way. I don't know what, but yeah, sometimes they're faking the pitch, but for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's really selling anything. I'd scrap those if I were Smith. And I just don't like, Fields got hammered a couple of times tonight. That one run in the first half, he took a shot. And we're not even talking about the one that got him taken into the blue tent either. That's just your typical hit in the pocket. But there were a couple of moments where I feared for his safety. So I understand that's part of his skill set, right? That's the benefit of starting Justin Fields, is that he can move around and he can make something happen. And he had a very courageous touchdown run against the Colts last week. So I can't be too much of a hypocrite and say don't run that much, because he got the job done there. And it was a big moment in that game to keep the Steelers in it. But I just wonder how much you can do that. He's still a pretty young player. And I'm just a little bit worried about his safety and his long-term viability if he keeps taking shots like that.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting point here from Mike. New OC, new quarterback, same results as prior years, too conservative of a game plan and below-the-line quarterback play. This combination always bites them in the end. I kind of agree with this, but also, I think, one, sort of necessitates the other. Like if you don't have good quarterback play and you're relatively certain that you're not going to have good quarterback play, then the Steelers' game plan makes sense. Like I was baffled that they made the decision on the first drive of the game, run the ball on 3rd and 8 at the what was it, about the 45-yard line, something like that. Like
They were closer than that. I
maybe
think it was
even
like the
inside
30.
of that. Yeah, closer than that. And then they got to 4th and 2 and still kicked the field goal. I mean, getting 6 yards on 3rd and 8 is like a top 15% outcome, and they still kicked the field goal. Like, to me, that's a team that is just saying, like, our quarterback is not going to be very good, and this is the game that we have to play, and this is how we have to win it. I think Mike Tomlin says it again at the end of the game by calling his timeout on defense. They could win the game with one good play on defense. They were going, even with that timeout, they were going to need to string together multiple good plays in a very short amount of time to try to come back if they gave up that touchdown. He didn't say this, but he said it with his action. I don't think our offense is good enough to win this game, even if I give them this timeout. We have to win it on defense here. They're saying over and over again they don't trust Justin Fields. They don't trust this offense. It's the number one reason I think we are going to see Russell Wilson play next week, because that's the way they're playing. And if you don't trust your quarterback, you better play a conservative game plan. What else is there?
Yeah. What did you make of the first drive of the second half? They ran some, I don't want to call it hurry up, but it was definitely more of an up-tempo. And I thought Fields was looking the most comfortable all night, getting the ball out of there quick. Freiermuth a couple of times. I forget who else in the flat. But he was getting it. That was after he actually got hit. It was just after he came back into the game after that. And he had, 4 straight completions, including the pass to Hayward in the left front corner of the end zone. So do you think that's an avenue forward if Fields does get another look here at some point this season, even if it's not next week?
Yeah, I think so. I think he has. It was funny. It's like he came out of the tent like a different guy. It was like Clark Kent going into the phone booth. Like he was in the tent and he came out. He was decisive. The ball was coming out fast. And then we didn't really see that again. Now they only had 2 more drives, I think, after that. It was a long drive for both teams, fourth quarter, and then they went back and forth and traded them. But yeah, I mean that's the one. The next drive right is the one that goes through Pickens' hands on 3rd down. I'm not going to fault Justin Fields for that. I thought he was better in the fourth quarter. This is the second game in a row where you can't wait until the second half to play good football. And I don't think it's all on the game plan. I think he is getting better as games go on, but it's just the end result is not particularly good enough. I agree with this point from Milk here. Russell can't run like Fields. For better or for worse, him running was a decent part of their offense tonight. They're going to have to find a way to replicate that without him if they are going to play Russell Wilson, because, in the best of circumstances, you're not going to run Russell Wilson like that. And clearly coming off his second calf injury of the season is not the best of circumstances. Does that part of it give you any pause to say, like, hey, this has been a big part of what they've been doing, and now, going to Russell Wilson might be attractive for a lot of reasons, but how do they make up for the loss of the quarterback running game?
Yeah, that certainly, it has been a big part of it. They've gone to it on possession downs. They've gone to it near the goal line, and I think to pretty good effect with Fields. But it's just a totally different it happens all the time when you change quarterbacks, right? There are a lot of times very different skill sets in the QB room, and I don't think it should be any reason to shy away from that change. I think protection in the pocket itself was decent tonight. There were some breakdowns, but it's the NFL. You're going to get beat sometimes around the edge. You're going to get beat sometimes up the middle. You're not going to have a clean pocket all the time. And I think Russell, despite the calf injury, he can still move around a little bit within the confines of the pocket. So I also think he is an experienced enough guy to know that he's going to want to get the ball out in rhythm, and he's not going to hang on to it forever. So I just see a few more upsides than downsides and switching over to him for those reasons, just because he's done it before, 10-plus year veteran. And again, that's why you brought the guy in to give him a look and see if he can do something with this offense that previous quarterbacks have not since Ben retired.
Yeah, this is a good point here. Defense needs Cameron Sutton back from Jake and Vincent Adams saying based off Tomlin's comments, is the plan to hold his nose and keep letting Beanie get picked on, or do we see more three safety lineups? Yeah, I mean, I thought Beanie was pretty rough today. He gave up the touchdown late last week. Listen, this is why you don't play undrafted rookies this much. Like, I'm not like picking on Beanie Bishop. The other team is picking on Beanie Bishop, but like, I don't expect an undrafted rookie to come out here and be good. He's been okay. I thought it was very much riding the roller coaster, right? Like he had a negative play, and then he had a really good play, and then he had a pass breakup on third down that forced the field goal. Actually, I think that was the field goal that got blocked, right? He broke up the pass on third down. Then he had a really nice tackle to sniff out. Was it like a jet sweep or an end around or something like that? Tackle for loss. But he had a two penalties maybe. Missed assignment on Ferguson earlier in the game. Yeah, he's going to have that roller coaster. But there's nobody else. Like, I mean, you can play a little bit more three safety, but again, when you play three safety, you end up with Deshaun Elliott on Jalen Tolbert, and that is a matchup that does not favor Deshaun Elliott. That's not his skill set. They're in that defense, and they give up the last touchdown on fourth down. I think you can do some of that, but at some point you have to have a slot corner that you can play. Maybe we'll see Thomas Graham come up from the practice squad. He was up last week but didn't really play much. Maybe he'll get a couple more reps. Maybe a little bit more Terrell Edmonds, although that's not really his game either. I don't know. I think that's the defense as a whole. I don't think has been bad, but I think they've been like for a defense with as many experienced playmakers as they have, they should be a little bit easier on them to hide one or two young guys that don't quite know what they're doing. It doesn't seem like they've been able to do that. It seems like no matter what, Beanie and Peyton Wilson and guys like that have been picked on in pass coverage.
Yeah, I know how folks feel about Chris Collinsworth, but he was critical of Minkah Fitzpatrick a couple of times, thought he blew some assignments downfield. I'm looking at the play-by-play, and I'm seeing at least 6 Dallas pass plays of 20 yards or more, and it wasn't just in one spot. It was down the middle against Beanie Bishop one time. It was to the sideline a couple of times where it looked like the Steelers got caught with one high safety in some situations when they were expecting a run. So there was it was a hodgepodge of defensive breakdowns there. And then the play that maybe turned the game was the little dump off pass to the fullback for Dallas that set up the whole. Yeah, right. Exactly. Didn't see that one coming, but that's what got him down within the 5-yard line and made that final touchdown possible.
Yeah, let's talk about the defensive injuries too. At one point, they were down all 4 of their top 4 outside linebackers, I think. Alex Highsmith obviously did not play in this one. Going to miss probably at least one more week with a groin injury. Nick Herbig left this game with a hamstring injury. Mike Tomlin did not give a specific update about him after the game, but it looked serious. That is a tough young dude, and he was in a lot of pain coming off that field. I would be shocked if we see Nick Herbig for a couple of weeks. And then DeMarvin Leal in the game and back out of it with a stinger. Those can be fleeting and they can be serious. We saw Trenton Thompson last year had one and it ended his season. Ryan Watts had one in the preseason, ended his season. We'll see where it goes. Sometimes guys get right back to it. You actually see him coming off the field like he was moving his hands, but very clearly something was not right there. Anytime you get any kind of neurological damage, you're looking at the potential anyway for a serious injury. And then T.J. Watt was in the blue tent for a little bit as well. The Steelers never made an injury announcement on him. Mike Tomlin didn't mention him after the game, but he was clearly not 100%. In that second half, he was coming off the field way more than he usually does, even though the other position was just a sort of black hole. So it was when Joey Porter made that interception, it was Jeremiah Moon and Isaiah Loudermilk was playing edge on the other side. Normally a hand in the ground with defensive lineman playing outside linebacker. He has done it a little bit before, way back in his rookie year, I think, but not an ideal situation. Definitely feel like the injuries piling up on the defense, and that so much of what this defense does is tied into those edge rushers being able to get pressure. Like that's their whole defense is built around. Hey, you only have to cover for so long because T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith are going to get home, and Cam Hayward and Larry Ojobi and Kenny Benton can push the pocket forward, and these guys aren't going to have all day to stand back there. So we can design our coverages so that they don't have to last that long. And then you see the game-winning touchdown. Rush doesn't get there. Dak had all day. Eventually finds Tolbert, got a little rub on against man coverage, and just got inside of Deshaun Elliott. I definitely think that's a part of the equation here for the defense struggle in the fourth quarter, is that they've just banged up at a very critical position.
What are you thinking about? I'm seeing this comment here from Off First Instinct that just came in, talking about Patrick Queen. I felt like there was a lot of hype around his signing in the offseason, and I was curious to see how it would pan out. I know it's early returns here. We're just 5 games into 17, or hopefully more than that if you're a Steelers fan. But how do you think he's fitting in? And do you agree that he might have been a little bit overrated coming in? Obviously, Baltimore didn't feel good enough about him to bring him back. So that was the one part that I was a little bit nervous about as he stayed within the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Baltimore situation was, they had him and Roquan Smith coming up at the same time. You're not going to put that much into the inside linebacker position. They paid big money for Smith. They weren't going to pay big money for Queen, too. The Steelers didn't really pay big money, but at the top range of salaries for that position. He's a guy with an all-pro pedigree, and I don't think he's been that good so far. And I was fairly critical of him last week. There's been a lot of miscommunications on the defense, and he's the guy that's supposed to be getting it organized. I just think that's a lot for a guy who's new to the defense. I think he can be better. I've been a little disappointed by his tackling. I don't think he's been particularly stout in that regard. The run fits, I think, have gotten better after a couple wonky first couple weeks. I'm just not seeing enough splash from him. I think he needs to get comfortable in this defense and start playing a little bit faster. It's interesting because I think rookies have a tendency, like young guys have a tendency to just run really fast at the problem. And when they get it right, they make really nice plays. And when they get it wrong, they've just ran really fast in the total wrong direction. And now they're think like young Devin Bush, right? Sometimes he would make a really great play and you'd go, ooh, and sometimes it'd be 12 yards in the wrong direction and there would be a huge play behind him. I think you're not seeing that from Patrick Queen. He's generally in the right spot. It just doesn't seem like he's quite quick enough with his decision making, and his linebacker so instinctual. It just feels like he doesn't look comfortable out there compared to the guy I've seen on tape before. Hopefully he'll be able to get over that, because I think he can be a good player and an impact player. But it's not just him. You mentioned Minka. They're not getting a lot of splash from any of the other playmakers. It's the second team in a row that's done a fair job of minimizing T.J. Watt. I understand I say that in a game where he had a sack and a half and a forced fumble, but honestly, for him, that's a fairly just okay game. He averages over a sack per game. So I think there's got to be some more splash coming from somewhere, whether it's Minka, whether it's Queen. They did get the pick from Dante Jackson and Joey Porter today, but it hasn't been routine. And I think they probably need some of that from guys like Minka and Queen and the center of that defense. If they really want to become the defense I think they can be. They've been pretty good through 5 weeks. I'm not putting this team being 3-2 much on the defense right here, but my expectation for them was that they should be a top 5 defense, and I'm not quite sure they're quite there yet.
Yeah, I think the defense, I think you're spot on with that assessment that they are counting on splash, and we've seen it work, right? We've seen it work over the past 3-4 years. It keeps them in games. It wins them some games a lot of times. I can think back to several. It seems like especially prime time at home, they do tend to make some big plays, and they did get the ball on the ground a couple of times tonight too. One bounced their way, one didn't, and they still ended up picking off Dak Prescott a couple of times as well. So the splash was there. I guess the dispiriting part was that a lot of that stuff went right, and still the result didn't go their way. But I guess that's the benefit of building up that 3-win cushion early on. If you're looking at it with a glass half full perspective, is that, well, now you can have a bit of regression back to the mean here, perhaps, and it doesn't hurt you as bad as if, well, perhaps you had a little stumble there out of the gate. So here they are going to Vegas next week. Do you, well, there's still a road-heavy schedule here at the start, too. That's another thing to keep in mind. They've got some home games coming up as well. So I guess there are a couple of bright-ish spots you can look to on this dark night around 2 a.m. in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good comment here about the schedule. It does get tougher, right? This was kind of supposed to be the part of the year where they kind of needed to stack some wins. And I kind of think this is about where I had them at this point in the year. I thought they'd be about 3-2. I do think they have a pretty soft piece of the schedule here. The Raiders are not very good. The Giants are dreadful. The Jets can't score, although it could be debatable about whether the Steelers can. The Commanders look like a tougher team than they did at the start of the season. But really, if they can get to the midpoint of the schedule, six or so wins, I think they'll probably feel pretty good about that. But I think this team is kind of what it is. Like, it's limited by its talent at quarterback, doesn't have enough playmakers on offense. The offensive line banged up. I thought played as about as well as you could expect them to. This is Isaac Seumalo's first game back, 1 month back from a pec injury that when it first happened, they thought maybe it was going to be season ending. I didn't think he was great, but I assume he'll be better. Mason McCormick out there making his second start, still playing Zach Frazier as a young guy, still playing Broderick Jones as a relatively young guy. I think the offensive line can get better as the year goes on, but as many injuries as they've had, I thought they played well enough for this team to win this game. I don't know what more you're really expecting from that unit at this point in the season. They've got to find a way to get that unit better and get this offense on track before they get into the second half of the season. They got to stack wins here, but this is also the time of year where they got to be figuring some stuff out. That's why I think it's going to be Russ, because you can't wait until week 9 to make a change at quarterback, because that's when the schedule turns, and that's when, no matter who's in there at quarterback, they're going to lose some of those games. If they have something in their other quarterback, they got to figure it out right now.
Yeah, and there's this big picture perspective on the Steelers. I think I do espouse this theory as well, that they've won too much for their own good. They think they're better than they are because their record at the end of the year is decent enough, and you can look to these games where they pulled it out. And yes, their character wins. I'm not minimizing that, not minimizing the efforts of the guys in that locker room. It's a tough game. It's a hard game, and I appreciate what it takes to grind out a win. And I appreciate what it takes for the opposition to grind out a win, like we saw the Cowboys tonight too. So it does go both ways, and I think I would say that a loss is never good, but if you're going to have one like this, let it be now so you can realize that you're not as good as maybe you thought. You're not as good as maybe your record was, and you can seriously address some of these things, if it is even at all possible, beyond just getting healthy, because like we've talked about several times, injuries are piling up more so than usual, I would say, to this point. You get one guy back tonight, but you lose a couple of others. So that's not to be minimized. It is a game of injuries. It happens. I don't want to use that as an excuse, but it is an explanation at times for a lower quality of play. And I think we saw it on the last defensive drive when they got no edge rush, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to wrap it up for us here tonight. Thank you so much to Matt for filling in for Smitty. I really appreciate it, especially considering the late hour here at 20 after 2 in the morning in Pittsburgh. So a salute to you for joining and making this not just me here all by myself with the great. Also salute to the Steelers fans here in the chat, and also the fans who sat through that rain delay today. This was a great crowd at the end of this game, and man, I was glad I was not outside. Let me tell you that. It was pretty miserable out there from about 8 to 9:45, 10, and they stuck around. They were loud. They were into it. Really feel like the team kind of let them down here at the end. So shout out to the fans. Thank you guys all for being up with us here. I'll be back with a episode of Steelers Morning Rush in what's going to feel like about 15 minutes from now, but we'll actually be closer to 9 or 10 in the morning. And then there will be a locker room tomorrow afternoon, and then I'll be back here on the YouTube channel with Smitty tomorrow around 6 p.m. for Steelers Afternoon Drive. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform. If you're listening somewhere else, subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And make sure you go over to SteelersNow.com, check out all our written work. DB will have some Steelers dudes and duds up there, and I'll have all the content from the locker room coming out tonight as well, and then some takeaways tomorrow morning. Thanks, Matt. Anything else you want to pimp or plug or anything you got going on while you're here?
No, I wanted to compliment the amount of comments we had, but a Steelers loss, I know, motivates people more than a win a lot of times to stay up and be a bit angry and frustrated. All I know is at 12:55 a.m. I was glued to my TV. I was standing up in my living room 2 states away. So it was good theater in the end, even if that's cold comfort to Steelers fans as of right now. Thanks for having me, and yeah, talk to all you guys at some point in the future.
All right, Matt, thank you, and thanks to everyone else for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.